What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and last week I did a whole video about the Xbox rumors that were swirling around. Was Xbox getting away from exclusives? Were they getting out of the console business altogether? So on and so forth. And I even mentioned that that video could become outdated very quickly because we were getting a kind of an impromptu business update from Xbox later that week. Well, we got that update, and of course, I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. Now, that business update took place on last Thursday. They actually released an episode of the official Xbox podcast, which, side note, the most boring name for a podcast ever. And to be honest with you, when I first heard that this big bad business update that was going to calm everybody's fears about the future of Xbox was going to come out via a podcast, I felt like that was a little condescending. And honestly, I have nothing against podcasts. I love podcasts. I've done a podcast for over a decade now, so it's not anything against podcasts. It's just that there was so many rumors swirling around. People were freaking out. They were talking about how this was the beginning of the end of Xbox as a console maker. People with Xbox tattoos were scheduling their cover-up appointments. People were freaking out. And so to release this big business update that everybody was waiting for, everybody was kind of on the edge of their seats waiting for this information, to do it on a podcast just felt like Xbox wasn't understanding the moment. It wasn't understanding how big of a deal this was for their fan base. Well, now that I've listened to the whole 23-minute podcast, it kind of makes sense why they released it on a podcast, because this business update, while there was some good juicy information, it really wasn't that big of a deal. And I don't want to take a complete victory lap on this, because my video last week, I was wrong in a lot of it. I talked about how, I think I said this 1,000 times, it seems like, in that video, that there's got to be a big deal. Like, there's got to be a big announcement, because when there's this much smoke, there's got to be fire. To classify what we got in this podcast, even though there was some interesting stuff in it, to classify it as a fire is a exaggeration for sure. And if you watched my video last week, you can agree that while I wasn't completely dismissive of the rumors, I felt like I had a pretty reasonable reaction to it, especially considering everybody else that seemed like they were freaking out. They were talking about how this is how Sega got out of the console making business, and this is, again, the beginning of the end of Xbox. I didn't go that far, but even I thought it was going to be a way bigger deal than what we got. And honestly, I've never been more happy to be wrong in my entire life. Phil Spencer kicked off the update by answering the biggest question, the one that was on everybody's mind. Are there going to be Xbox exclusives going forward? He even mentioned that he would have planned this update very differently as far as what they were going to talk about and when they were going to talk about it. But the rumors about exclusives got so big that he felt like he needs to address that first. He did mention there will be 4 games that were previously exclusive to Xbox and PC moving to other consoles. He said, "We made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to other consoles. Just 4 games. Not a change to our kind of fundamental exclusive strategy. We're making these decisions for some specific reasons. We make every decision with the long-term health of Xbox in mind, and long-term health of Xbox means a growing platform, our games performing, building the best platform for creators, reaching as many players as we can." Unfortunately, he didn't come out and actually name the 4 games that are going to be jumping platforms. He did state, and I'm paraphrasing now, that those games are working on their own announcements and he didn't want to step on anybody's toes, which I can appreciate. However, he did make it very clear that those 4 games did not include Starfield and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is great because those are the 2 big games that were rumored that everybody was upset about. However, the internet did as the internet does, and they've already surmised what those 4 games are. So here are the games that the internet thinks are the 4 games that Phil Spencer is referring to. Those are Hi-Fi Rush, Pediment, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. Hi-Fi Rush is actually the only one of those 4 games that was previously rumored to be jumping platforms. We talked about that in the last video. And if I'm being honest, I'm a little torn about this announcement. While on one hand, I am really glad it's nowhere close to as big of a deal as we originally thought it was going to be. That's great, because I do love Xbox. I've played on Xbox for more than half of my life now. So I'm glad that it's not as big of a deal as everybody made it out to be. But on the other hand, one thing that I hit on last video was one thing out of everything else that I wanted to get out of this business update was I wanted a clear plan. I wanted them to communicate that clearly and honestly. Whatever that plan was, I wanted to know exactly what it was. And yes, they were clear on some things, but on others they weren't. They were still playing it close to the vest. So that was something that really bugged me, because that was something I hit on last video. I really wanted out of this business update. Xbox's communication in the past, especially around exclusives, has been less than ideal, to say it lightly. So again, I really hope that they come out with this business update and they have a plan set in place, and then they communicate that plan. Because unfortunately, us gamers, and I don't like that this is the case, but I think we can all admit that we've been eating shit because of these greedy game companies for years. So unfortunately, we are used to eating shit. But just don't lie to us. Don't manipulate us. If you're gonna screw us over, if you're getting away from exclusives altogether, then just tell us that. If you're going to more of a hybrid exclusive model, kind of similar to PlayStation 5 games, eventually years later coming to PC, then tell us that. Have a clear plan moving forward and communicate that. At the bare minimum, that's what I want from this business update. While I do appreciate the idea of not wanting to step on the toes of the announcements of all these other games, if they're already working on those announcements, they're kind of doing it their own way. I appreciate that. But at this point, that ship has sailed, my guys. Like, you've let these rumors swirl out of control to the point where at this point you don't have a choice. As far as I'm concerned, you really just have to come out and squash those rumors. You have to tell us what those games are. Yes, I do like that they were very definitive about Indiana Jones and Starfield, but at this point you have to be that definitive about the games as well. You have to tell us what games are jumping ship, which I don't know why that was my second ship reference in 30 seconds. Maybe because one of the games is rumored to be Sea of Thieves. I kind of just have ships on my brain. I don't know. They also shared some insight on Game Pass, what's coming up for the service, and just how it's doing in general. And I was actually pleasantly surprised that they gave us some subscription numbers during this business update, which may not sound like a big deal, but it's actually the first time since 2022 that they gave us these numbers. Of course, they're only sharing these numbers because the numbers are good. Game Pass now has hit 34 million subscribers, which is actually up 36% since the last time Microsoft reported those numbers. Now, of course, there needs to be some context with that 34 million number. That number also includes Game Pass core members. And if you're not aware, Microsoft made a pretty big change to their Xbox Live Gold service a while back. That service, Xbox Live Gold, is now just called Game Pass Core. And it's basically just Xbox Live Gold, plus you also have access to a very limited catalog of Game Pass games. If I remember correctly, it's like 20 to 25 games that you can play. So some of those players, I'd imagine a good chunk of those players, just want Xbox Live Gold. And they don't really care that technically they're also part of Game Pass. This was just the cheapest option to get Xbox Live Gold. So obviously that inflates that 34 million number. However, during this section of the business update, they also announced the first Activision Blizzard game coming to Game Pass since the acquisition, and that game is Diablo 4, which personally I can respect and appreciate that the games are well made and they have a big fan base. I just personally am not a huge fan of the Diablo games. I'm just, in general, I'm not a fan of that top-down hack and slash genre. It's just not my cup of tea. And people specifically to Diablo 4 has been kind of hot and cold with this game, and it's currently mixed reviews on Steam. However, it was still a big game that I didn't play last year. And you're telling me I get to play it for free outside, of course, the subscription service that I pay for Game Pass? Sign me up for that. At least I get to try this game out. If I don't like it, I don't like it, which again, I tend to not really enjoy these types of games, but if I get to play it for free, I'm definitely going to do it. However, the biggest Game Pass news that we got from this business update is the fact that Game Pass is not going to PlayStation 5 or Switch. President of Game Content and Studios, Matt Booty, made it very clear that first-party games will be day one Game Pass, and Game Pass will only be available on Xbox, of course, PC as well. That's just huge news for Xbox fanboys that were worried that Xbox was gonna get out of the console business altogether. Because in my opinion, the only way for that to work, because they put so much capital in Game Pass, Xbox has basically gone all in on Game Pass. If they were gonna get out of making consoles, they would need to find a home for Game Pass that isn't just PCs. Because I love playing on my PC. I have a Steam Deck, it's awesome. I play a lot of games on PC, but out of like PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox, PC players are still kind of the niche of the gaming world. So you can't just put this huge service that you put so much time and effort into and just dump it on PC. So you'd have to find another home for it. And if they don't have any plans to do that, it doesn't seem like getting out of the console business would really make sense for Xbox. To add to that news, they also announced that they have exciting stuff in the hardware space, and then they're going to share more this holiday. Now, what they actually mean by that is still up in the air. In my opinion, it's probably one or two things. One, we're going to get an update to the Series X like we did with the Xbox One, or we might just get a brand new console announcement. If I had to put money on it, I would lean towards we're probably just going to get an updated Series X. That would make more sense than a brand new console, but who knows? The big news is that they still have plans to make consoles, that there's zero plans to get out of the console making business. But in my opinion, that was all the big news in this business update, but it is a 23-minute podcast. I kind of only gave you the cliff notes of what I thought was interesting. I will link the full video in this video description. I would suggest checking it out yourself because they did hit on a lot of other stuff that I didn't touch on in this video. They did also mention that they are planning another business update in June, and I got really excited when I heard that because my birthday's in early June. I think it falls on a Sunday, so if they do another one of these big business updates on like a Thursday or Friday right before my birthday, maybe Patty gets an early birthday present. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's something cool. But wrapping up this particular video, I think the moral of this story is that the next time there's all these monumental rumors swirling around that a company that's been in this space forever is getting out of the space, maybe let's just like pump the brakes a little bit. Let's not freak out. Let's wait for them to actually announce stuff. Let's remember this moment right now and realize how foolish we feel right now if you went all in, if you jumped off the deep end, because I feel foolish and I feel like I still had a pretty reasonable take last week. I can only imagine the people that really dove off the deep end feel just really stupid right now. But as always, those are just my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, which of course I hope that you did, smash that like button, as the kids say. It's just a quick and easy way to help me out. It just tells YouTube that you enjoyed this video, and then it should push it to other people that might enjoy it as well. But if you did enjoy the video and you kind of want to go an extra little bit, don't just smash that like button, consider subscribing and dinging that bell. That way you're notified every time I post a new video. I post weekly gaming related content, so if you like that type of content, which you obviously do because you made it this far in the video, you're listening to the outro, so you obviously enjoy my content, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. Speaking of weekly content, I will most likely, because I do have a busy weekend this coming weekend, that I most likely will have to skip next week's video. I will try to put out some short content so the channel won't be completely dead for a week, but unless there's just some like monumental thing that hits between now and next week, I most likely won't put out a full video until like 2 weeks from now. So I just wanted to make that very clear in case next week rolls around and you're curious why I didn't put out a video. That's why I was super busy this weekend. So with all that being said, until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?